to stay alive. Trying to find me shawty and make her mine. Now I'll find one in no time. With the help of my homies, I'm going out with my bros. With my bros.
My girls hold me down when them boys mess around. My love life is a headache. We going out tonight 'cause I'm making love.
What's up, guys? I'm Crystal Lee Naomi, aka Jasmine Borders on Tyler Perry's Sisters. Be sure to subscribe to the Haves and the Have-Nots review for not only reviews on the Haves and the Have-Nots, but also on Sisters. And while you're at it, give your girl a follow on Instagram at Crystal Lee Naomi. And I'll see you every Wednesday at 9, only on BET.
All right, bruh and sisters fans. Now, I have to say that this post I made on Instagram about a week or two ago, it wasn't a joke. I thought it was just a fun way to kind of do something a little different on Instagram instead of blowing it up with like 20 or 30 posts at once. I'm like, yeah, let's do something to mix it up. Let's talk about potential crossover ideas. And I figured that for years, people wanted If Loving You Is Wrong and the Haves and the Have-Nots to cross over, but it didn't happen. So I figured, now that these shows are relatively, well, still new, why not make a post on my Instagram? And speaking of which, links to my social media are in the description box below. Also, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon. That way you won't miss out on new videos and live streams. And when you click the bell, click the all button. That way you get notifications for everything I do. And I thought, let's talk about ways the shows could cross over, because Bruh was never advertised as a companion series to Sisters. I mean, I think it was understood to be, oh, here's the male version of Sisters. And the only element of the series that really pointed to a crossover was when Andy and Andrea popped up in episode 2 of Bruh, because it turns out that both she and Mike work at the same law firm. I believe that Mike is like a tax lawyer. Yeah, his specialty is about taxes. And then Andy, if memory serves from Sisters, is in the realm of divorce. So yeah, they work at the same firm. And obviously the events of Bruh take place, kind of either before Sisters officially started. Yeah, I did an entire video about all the shows connected, so check them out on the playlist. But this video is all in good fun. It's all in good fun. Like, I know that they filmed Sisters season 2. They finished wrapping on that about a week or so ago. They're currently working on the Oval season 2. Speaking of Bruh, check out my video. I did an interview with Caroline, aka Valerie from Bruh. And yes, it is a Zoom video, not a Zoom audio interview, because I know a lot of people were like, hey, do an interview where it's you and a person on screen. And I did it. So the Instagram post I did extremely well. I had a lot of feedback from characters from both series. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about the post I made and the different crossover ideas, and I might throw in a couple more that I didn't put in the initial post because Instagram only allows 10 photos a post. So the first thing, in no particular order, and remember, these are just fun ideas. If you have anything you would like to add, throw them in the comment section below. We know that Sabrina and Maurice work at a bank, so I think it's pretty easy to have like an episode of Sisters or even an episode of Bruh where we have characters from Bruh going into the bank to make a deposit. Like, let's say it's Miss Alice, or it could be John making a deposit at the bank from their money at the sandwich shop. I know Laura would be a fun character to have the money go to, but they don't even trust Laura to run the restaurant by herself because of her demeanor and sticky fingers. So I don't think they would trust Laura with going to the bank with the restaurant money to make a deposit unless they had no other choice, which could lead to a funny moment I pointed to where, Laura's thing is kind of like flirting with everybody she comes in contact with, every man she comes in contact with. So let's say she tries to throw it at Maurice, and then Maurice is like, honey, you're not my type. So I think that would be a funny interaction. Now, speaking of Miss Alice, I think that we could have Miss Lisa, Karen's mother, and Alice, John's mother, turn out to be friends from back in the day. It seems like, both of them had rebellious stages of their life, and they kind of got stuck there because they're strong, independent women who are both tough as nails. They're stern but fair, and they pretty much, well, they're down for a good time, and they love their kids even though they're hard on them. And I mean, when you think about it, John and Karen kind of have a lot in common, and I'll get more into that when I get to the section where I talk about how potentially we could see the sister and bruh main characters pair up in couples. So, just throwing that out there. Now, we know that Maurice and Jasmine, Maurice on bruh, or excuse me, Maurice on Sistas and Jasmine on, well, Sisters. Excuse me. Yeah, both characters on Sistas. They're in the hospital recovering after, Maurice got beat down and Jasmine got thrown off a roof onto the top of the car. Who's to say they aren't in the same hospital that Valerie and Tom work at? Or technically Tom used to work at because he's currently suspended. And when it comes to Valerie, when Tom was talking with the chief, it was revealed that she knew about his whole situation with John and the guys and the dean's daughter in college. And it's like, wait a minute, how would that chief know about that? Apparently, she could have gotten the info from Valerie because Valerie probably looked into it and, found dirt that she could use on Tom. Or the argument could be made that after Valerie made the allegations against Tom, the chief did her own research and then found his history, and then that was brought up. But I think a fun little crossover idea is that Leslie from Sistas, who was hired by Jasmine, who's a PI, perhaps Valerie kind of hired her in order to get dirt on Tom to use against him in order to get revenge and keep that in her back pocket until, the time was right. I could definitely see that being a possibility. Now, speaking of people on the job, we know that Karen owns a salon. So I don't think it would be impossible for, let's say, Regina or Pam or Alice or one of the other ladies from Bruh to actually be in Karen's shop. Like Karen could be doing their hair, or another one of the beauticians could be, doing their hair. Like they might not even have to have a speaking role. Like we could see Regina in the hair getting her hair done and just say, hey, thank you, another great job, and just walk out the door, and it'll be like, oh, that was a Bruh character. You see what I mean? Like the crossovers don't have to be these mind-blowing experiences, but they could be great little Easter eggs. Like again, when Andy was in Mike's apartment, her role was not even 5 minutes long, but it was excellent because it's like, oh, the shows are connected. Speaking of the ladies, Pam, in Bruh, it's been established for the most part that every woman knows everyone in this town. So basically, we have Pam who knows Laura because Laura knew everything about Mike's reputation because those two apparently get their hair and nails done at the same spot. So who's to say Pam or maybe Regina, maybe they know some of the Sistas cast. Like they don't have to know every single one of the ladies, but maybe Pam knows Karen. I mean, maybe Pam gets her hair done at Karen's salon, or maybe Pam was at Freddie P's on Sistas, the club that Alonzo owns. Maybe Pam was at Freddie P's a couple of times and she met up with the girls there. Maybe they frequent there a lot and it's like, oh, hey, Sabrina, you work at the bank. Again, just a small nod to continuity. They can know each other from that. And then when we go over to Danny, we know that on Sistas, yeah, these characters aren't opposed to lighten up some of the good stuff when they've had a rough day. So we know Danny, who's to say she doesn't get some of her supply from Leon? I think that would be an awesome little nod to continuity where you have Leon, who's like this, this hard as nails character who has a soft spot for his cousin John. But at the same time, I could see a foolish character, a comedic character like Danny, flirting with Leon or something. Who's to say they haven't, had some... Let's say Danny might have gotten some free stuff because without some money, she was able to put it on Leon for a couple of ounces. That's all I'm saying. I could definitely see that crossover happening there. Now, I just wanted to save the big one for last. I'm trying to think of any other crossover ideas that I didn't mention in my Instagram post, but to be completely honest here, I think the post did a pretty good job of summing up various ways that the two shows could combine. And you know me, I'm a stickler for continuity and timeline, but that doesn't mean the characters couldn't just pop up. But here we go. Here's how I could see the guys and gals potentially pairing up. I was about to say gals first, but I have guys first in the meme. These pair ups are just, again, potential, so they could possibly change. Now, here's the thing. We know that Mike has a thing where he wants to try to get with Andy, but keep in mind that this is probably during the time, because she says that I'm not with someone, but I'm loyally committed. I think that she was referencing Gary. So I don't think that Mike really has a shot, even though I do think in terms of crossover potential, why don't we get a shot of Mike at work? If I'm not mistaken, the only person we haven't seen doing their job is Mike. I mean, he's been doing some work from home, but we've never seen him at the law firm. Like, who's to say he and Andy aren't, you know, taking, let's say Mike, one of them is walking down the hallway and sees the other, or let's say one of them is in the break room and then the other one comes in and they talk, and then Mike tries to, you know, say, oh, I'm sorry for how I acted, but I'd really like to get coffee or something with you. It's like, sorry, not interested. And that would be a pretty cool exchange there, especially with everything that's been going on between Mike and Pam. John and Karen. Now, John to me reminds me of Zach, and I think that Karen might find that a bit charming. A goofy guy with a good heart, but he doesn't have the best track record. Obviously, John has a record like Zach, but actually the only reason John has a record is because he took the fall for a crime he didn't commit. And John does seem to be, unlike Zach, a loyal guy who's kind of like a one-woman dude. I mean, he rarely gets any, but at the same time, if he did have one girl, I could see him being loyal to her. So I think that Karen and John do have similarities in terms of the way their mothers raised them and the way their mothers act. And imagine if, you know, Miss Lisa sees John and it's like, you're Alice's boy, aren't you? Yeah. And then the fact, when you think about it, both of them have their own businesses, but only because a friend lent them money. I think it was confirmed that Andy gave Karen the startup money for her salon, and she's working to pay her back. And then John, of course, got $200K from his bros, and he's only able to pay them back $20 a month. So I see these two potentially hitting it off. Now, the other two potential couples are a bit difficult. I couldn't decide if I wanted Sabrina with Tom, or, you know, Tom with Danny. But here's the thing. I mean, one argument can be made, like, with a wild person like Danny, you would have Tom thinking, wow, Valerie really isn't that bad after all. But I think that Tom would make a good match for Sabrina, because they're both down to earth, and they're kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of like the peacemaker amongst their groups. You know, Tom is definitely the, I guess you could say, the counselor of the bros, and Sabrina is the same way of the sisters, because when you look at it, there's been a lot of animosity. Like in season 1 of Sistas, you had Danny, who was kind of feeling isolated from the group, feeling like, you know, oh, you guys talk about me behind my back and this and that. And Sabrina was the one trying to keep everyone together. And then you have on bruh, John feeling, you know, disrespected and, you know, made fun of because none of his bros believe in his dreams. And Tom was the one that was trying to stop him from, you know, doing something stupid, getting that drug money from Leon. So to be honest, I honestly never thought about that until just now. I could see Tom and Sabrina really hitting it off. Bill and Danny, what I like about it is it would be a fun dynamic between the two, because you could argue that John and Danny share that comedic, over-the-top demeanor, and you could argue that Danny would actually probably remind John of his mother, and I could see Danny and Miss Alice hitting it off pretty well, now that I think about it. But I think that Bill could use a Danny in his life because of the whole commitment thing with Regina. Danny will make him commit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there an episode of Sistas where it was it Danny and Sabrina who were at the supermarket, and Danny saw a guy that was actually married. Wait, it was an ex of hers, and she literally went off on him in the store because he was with somebody else. I could see Danny and Bill being in a situation like that, where Danny, is going to make Bill commit whether he wants to or not. She's not going to be kind of like the pushover that Regina was, and Bill would be in a crazy relationship, but he would actually commit. So overall, I could see these potential couples working. Maybe not Andy and Mike, but in terms of shared interest, I could see it happening, because honestly, with Mike's demeanor, when I'm thinking about all three of the women, not counting Andy, I don't see Danny putting up with Mike's attitude. Karen has an attitude of her own, so I can see her snapping back. Sabrina, no-ish. Mike hasn't shown to be abusive, but he does drink when he's angry, so that makes me concerned. So I don't know if him and Andy would hit it off too well. So yeah, I think Mike, Andy wouldn't work, but then I see potential with Tom. I think I see the most potential with Tom and Sabrina. I see the most potential with them. And then speaking of how Danny could remind John of his mother, Karen definitely doesn't hold her tongue, and John could be like, look, you're just like my mom. You're always talking down to me all the time. So basically, in a way, John would be Zach. So technically, you could see that Karen would probably be attracted to him because of that. Yeah, I could see these pairings working up. But overall, there are just so many other ways that these people can cross over. Like, we can have Mike interacting with Andy's boss, who I forget his name. It's like Bellamy or something like that. I forget his name. There are Freddie P and Level 58. Is that the name of the club that John bought, but then, kind of gave the money over to Leon so he would run it himself? The guy's name who owned it was Freddie, and I'm like, he probably owned Freddie P's as well, so he decided to sell that club to Alonzo. That way he's not running two clubs, only one. And then he decided to sell Level 58 to John because it got to the point where he just wanted to retire. So I could definitely see why the crossover potential could be there. And I'm not saying all the guys and all the girls have to end up together. Who's to say that one of the girls from Sisters couldn't teach a lesson to one of the bros, and then as a result, like, let's say if Danny and Bill kind of went on a date or something like that, and then that date taught Bill the importance of commitment, and as a result he mans up and he and Regina get together. Or let's say with a strong level-headed woman like Andy, except when it comes to Gary, let's say that this hard to get demeanor doesn't put Mike in line and has him realizing, the way I come off to women, the way I come on to women isn't the right approach. I need to be respectful and realize women have feelings too, and I just can't jump in the bed with everybody I meet, and that teaches him how to treat Pam better. I don't know how much Tom and Sabrina could learn from each other, because they definitely seem to be the level-headed ones of their groups. I know Tom said he's allegedly going to swear off women. Well, in terms of like sex and whatnot, he'll get back into church and be with the Lord, so to speak, after everything that happened with Valerie. And then Sabrina, just has to make peace with her own past of being abused as a child and realize, not every man is a fixer-upper, because some men are content with who they are, and if you don't accept them for who they are, then you just need to move on. And then when it comes to Karen and John, I just see those two. I see John maybe not in a romantic relationship, but I see him definitely connecting with Danny and or Karen. And then the whole Miss Lisa and Alice thing, I would love that. Like, let's say if Miss Lisa is, parking a motorcycle, she goes into the shop to grab a bite to eat, or she just knows Alice works there and they catch up. Like, even if it's like half an episode of just those two talking, I would love that. So those are just a few various ideas of how a bruh and sisters crossover could work. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If there are any other crossover ideas you would like to see in the future. And remember, this is just all in good fun. Who's to say that maybe Tyler Perry or one of the cast members won't, hey, these are some fun ideas for a crossover. Let's make it happen. I'd watch it. I certainly would. Now, if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal, Cash App, or you can join Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.